that one, and I remember how strongly I felt about it, and that told me something. You know, this idea of going and doing something without really any assets other than your own creativity and you know, no stars and all that just was really appealing to me. It was very pure, and I always dreamed that if I was an NBA basketball player, and you know, basketball's big in the United States, that I would have in my contract that I was allowed to play any basketball I want, street basketball. I could go play street basketball. And in the NBA contracts, it has the reverse, which is you're not allowed to play anywhere but on the courts of the NBA in case you get injured, you know? And to some extent, this is a little bit like that, going and just having fun making films.
There's a fun element to it, but obviously you put a huge amount of pressure on yourself doing something like this, because if the stories are to be believed, and you can tell us whether it's true or not, you pretty much financed this film yourself. You went away, as you said earlier on, and made it completely outside of the studio system and only then presented the finished product to them. And it's made with your own money. I mean, that puts a lot of pressure on you as well, doesn't it?
You know, I guess it's how you approach things as an artist, but for me, the more I can be more honest to myself, the better I think everything will turn out, you know? And it's obviously, it's a very collaborative medium, and it's very difficult because it requires a lot of money and resources. But in the quotient of things nowadays in filmmaking, you know, there used to be, like back in, let's pretend we're back in Jack Nicholson, 5 Easy Pieces, back in that day. The only quotient was the resonance of a movie, right? That's all that mattered, because then each of you would say, oh, you should go see Jack Nicholson and 5 Easy Pieces. And, you know, bit by bit that would grow, and that's how movies made money. That was how they made money. And there was a tiny little thing in the budget that said advertisement. And look at this is what I asked for. Yeah!
Launcher!
The second half of this Q&A is going to be great. And so that they used to have a silver, and that was kind of put for, you know, the New York Times ad or that kind of thing in the newspaper, and that was it, right? Because it was all word of mouth. Now, as you can tell, it's the art form of filmmaking and cinema has changed so much, because the quotient of what is the movie resonant is like that big. It's still there, but it's like that big. The marketability of a movie is its entire quotient, right? When they're deciding to make a movie, it's gigantic, right? So you get the right star, you put enough this and that, things that make it marketable. CGI makes it marketable. Sequels make it marketable. You know, things that are familiar make it marketable, you know, and that's suffocating. I get it, you know, and the reason that that's the case is because marketing a movie costs more than making the movie most of the time. And so it's just a sad thing, right? Because when we're like, well, you can't make 5 Easy Pieces anymore. You can't make Kramer versus Kramer or Terms of Endearment. That's why there's no dramas, right? Now in the movie theaters, because you guys don't go to the multiplex and see dramas anymore, because the marketability quotient is like, right? It's so tiny. The resonance quotient is very big, but again, as I told you, that's not the formula anymore. So it's difficult. So to kind of get away from all that, kind of thinking about what I just said, was just go and make something, you know, very, you know, for me, very specific, very special. And whatever the end result is, marketability-wise, we'll find a way to sell it, and let's find a way back into the system. It was kind of just trying to go back to pretending like we're back in 5 Easy Pieces kind of thing.
When it comes to the movie itself, I mean, you've created a small rod for your back by shooting it in the form of found footage, so everything has to come from the point of view of either one of the 2 cameras that are used. Did that make things harder for you? Was that a conscious choice? Was that something you just wanted to try and see if you could make a whole movie that way?
I make a big distinction between found footage and documentary. So for me, those are 2 different worlds. Documentary is something that can be imbued with artistry, beauty. It has a cinematic intention behind it. If I was shooting you guys in a documentary, or me doing this Q&A in a documentary, we could shoot it with intention, with, you know, with as much aesthetics as we can conjure. Found footage is by its nature just footage that was, you know, a camera haphazardly it records something, right? Something that happens. they're both valid, but this was a documentary ultimately. When I thought of her, Becca, as being a documentarian and wanting to record this family event and document her family coming back together, I knew exactly how to make the movie. I knew exactly who she was. I knew who her brother was against her. It just went click of how to do it, and I didn't really see it as a kind of a found footage thing, but it really made sense to me. And I storyboard all my shots for all my thrillers that I make. So all the original thrillers that I've written, every single shot has been drawn out, and we shoot only those shots. And that was the same case in this point. I did do it a little earlier because it had to be in the script this time, because she picks it up, she keeps it on the shelf, or whatever it is, you know? That had to kind of be thought out, because each scene was a conceit about where the camera was. Even when she's pulling a practical joke on her brother, it's like we're looking at a living room, it's on a tripod. I mean, it's automatically that way, and you're like, where are we? Why is this on a tripod? And then he hears a noise in the closet and goes over, and then you realize she set the camera up retrospectively too.
Tell me about the two young stars of this movie, because if you don't get them right, then the whole movie fails there. And they're spectacular.
Thank you so much. They're actually both Australian, randomly. They do perfect American accents. And I just found them randomly from a couple thousand kids auditioned from around the world, and these two kids won it. And you know, my casting theory, you know, I've been super lucky with as kids in my movies, from Haley to Abigail Breslin to Bryce Dallas Howard, on and on and on. And you know, my theory on that is you don't want to like try to look for a 12-year-old Daniel Day-Lewis. That's not what you're looking for. Who can transform. That's not, you're just looking for that kid to exist somewhere in the world at that time, and because 2 years later they won't be that kid, right? So that kid exists somewhere in the world. And you know, when Ed sent his audition to be Tyler, and he did the rap with a little bit of a lisp, I was like, this is unbelievable. This kid, and he was and Ed is so much a performer. He's not alive unless he's performing, which is so much Tyler, that he's an entertainer, he wants to be an entertainer, so they just like, and Ed, as soon as he read it, he knew that he was that character too. And Olivia the same way. She's such an earnest kid, she works really hard at school, you know, all of that stuff. She's very much Becca. I'll tell you a little funny story about Ed. So Ed did that last rap in the credits, and he was doing okay, he wasn't getting right. I do about a huge amount of takes with these kids, by the way, on every single shot. And he wasn't getting this. He was feeling a little self-conscious and just wasn't coming out right, and he was getting really frustrated with himself. And this is the last day of shooting. And you know, as I said, Ed's a performer, and I was like, how can I get him to get back his little swagger? And then you know, on the camera, there's a little monitor, and the monitor faces me because I'm standing next to the camera, so I'm looking at Ed on the monitor, and I was like, So I turned the monitor around so he could see himself, and then he lit up, and I was like, action, and then he was like, yeah, and he was like, oh, man, I look good, and then he started doing it, and that's the take you see in the movie. And if you look at it again, you can see him looking at the monitor. He's like, man, I look good. And how to kick the kids into their right headspace is kind of the trick.
What our filmmaking has changed since The Sixth Sense to The Visit?
Oh my God, what a great last question. All right, so I'm gonna rattle off movies from the year of The Sixth Sense, okay? I'm just gonna rattle them off, okay? Sixth Sense, The Matrix, The Blair Witch, American Beauty, Being John Malkovich, Magnolia. This is 1 year. All the top movies from different studios that year. All original movies. Oh, The Insider, Michael Mann's Insider. All original movies, all kind of auteur-driven original movies. That is what Hollywood was. And obviously you know now, Hollywood now. The original filmmaker was King in 1999. And so you can see that's, in 16 years the world has changed dramatically. I mean, dramatically. That's one shift. The other shift that's happened prior to that was happening already there. You can already feel that it's happening there, but it's now permanently here. Is from the 90s. You know, when I was a kid, the sweet spot was, you know, like Ron Howard, Robert Zemeckis. You know, it was like right here. And then on the right, barely acceptable for release, was David Fincher and Chris Nolan. Just too dark, too somber. Those guys there's something wrong with them. And now they are dead center. And they are over there, too soft, right? It's like, it's this shift. I mean, it's a fascinating shift. I've watched it happen. I can feel it happening, you know? Think about this. When I was a kid, I saw E.T. and was weeping in the theater. 13-year-old boy weeping in the theater. Can you imagine a 13-year-old boy today weeping at the theater with all of his other 13-year-old guy friends weeping in the theater? If he did, it's ridiculous. We think there was something wrong with him. But that was what was happening, right? That was super soft and sweet, and that was dead center for me, right? That was even all way over there, you know, that was in the 80s, right? So things have changed dramatically. What we used to call childhood has shrunk, right? I joke about that. I think in the New York Times I said something about that, where now we go from Pixar to Seth Rogen. There's nothing in between, right? There's like this, whereas before, like I just watched Toy Story with my kids, the first Toy Story, and the kid's playing with this toy, and I'm like, is he mentally unhealthy? Is he okay? And as that thought came in my head, I'm like, how whacked has the world gotten that a kid can't play with a toy, you know? And you know, it's like from, it used to be childhood, it used to be like 9 to 14, 15, you know? You could be a child, you know? And that's squeezed to nothing, you know? You're literally like a baby, and then you're immediately like a teenager, like a cynical teenager. It's a fascinating world. So that's been tough for me, because I grew up as I'm the youngest of my generation of filmmakers, but all of us grew up with Spielberg, Lucas, right? They were the ones that got us to make movies. We're their kids, basically, and their sweet spot was over there. That almost doesn't exist anymore, right? And so I keep unconsciously mimicking that sweet spot, you know. But now I know I have to earn it, you know, desperately, you know. I have to earn it with edginess, and I have edginess, and I have, you know, I can come from a dark place, so it's fine. I can click over to that side. I have a dark side, and I just kind of go in there. But you to earn that last scene with her and her mom, you know, I basically had to put shit in a kid's face. I had to take you someplace you've never been. And you're like, you're dark, I get you, you're dark. Good, okay, make us weep, it's okay, it's okay. It's like you have to go so far in the other direction. So the world is, and it will change again, it may change back again. You know, you just have to be aware of where we are as a culture, human beings, where the society is, and where storytelling is, what's needed, what's wanted. So watching that, it's fascinating, you know, as we watch kind of like this, you know, our heroes have become the Joker, Jack Sparrow, Stark from Iron Man, right? They become these kind of anti-heroes. Those are our heroes now. You know what I mean? It's like it's shifted, but I get it. I mean, as a storyteller, I get it. It's you. I have to be, as a storyteller, I have to be with you when you walk in this door. I can't just be me. Being me is arrogant, right? I have to be us together, and if us are struggling, if we are all having cynicism, we need to start together that place, right? So that the Joker, you know what I'm saying, the Stark, Tony Stark, right? So you heard it in there. You have, you know, Tyler's that way, you know, they're all there. They're being very, very edgy, and then it starts to come back towards me, you know, by the end. So fascinating changes as things have happened over these years, even from the 80s and 90s, but also from Sixth Sense till now.
And that was a great last question.
Thank you
and
so
it was
much.
the last question. Ladies and gentlemen, M. Night Shyamalan.